Hi, I'm Kimberly, and I went through over 10 years of extreme chronic illnesses with diagnosis of Lyme disease, toxic mold, fibromyalgia, autoimmune disorders, chronic fatigue, and then I became a whitewater raft guide. So I haven't talked too much about that on this channel, and so I kind of just wanted to talk a little bit about my experiences. First off, I'm laying here and I am sewing some pants and sewing a mask. It's a castor oil mask. So that's what I've been doing. And I was like, well, I'm doing this, I will just talk. So there was actually somebody, what prompted this today was that somebody had posted about any experience with living off-grid, living without running water, and like pooping specifically, and how to deal with that. So I've been thinking about sharing a little bit more about my time and why I became a whitewater raft guide and how that helped me to brain retrain and to continue my healing and really fully come out of the experiences that I was in. So when we are brain retraining and we are like in our normal day-to-day life, in our normalcy, in our patterns, in our familiar surroundings, our environment, the people that are around, eating our foods and everything, brain retraining itself is all about getting out of your familiar patterns, right? It's like changing as many things as possible. So like eating with your left hand if you're right-handed, or brushing your teeth with your opposite hand, or even writing. I honestly didn't really do the writing part of it, but I did the eating and the brushing my teeth. And brushing my teeth was actually hard. I actually have always kind of ate with both hands, so that wasn't like too challenging, but I had not brushed my teeth with the opposite hand. So anyway, well, I had no really outdoor experience at all. I had only been camping a couple of times. I had and it was in like a pretty, chill environment with a lot of amenities nearby, not out in the middle of nowhere. I had no whitewater experience. I'd never been whitewater rafting. I had no idea how to read water. Just all of that was brand new to me. And then I ended up living on the property of the owners of the raft company that I worked for in Tahoe, and we were living, first I was living with my partner at the time in a school bus, who I met while I was rafting, and he was actually one of my trainers. And so I started living with him. I was first renting a room and then moved into the school bus he was living in, and we had no running water on the property there, but we did have natural spring water on the property, which was amazing. Like, oh my God, what an amazing blessing to have, and how healing and healthy to have that. However, I had never been without running water. I had never hauled water. I didn't even, the jugs that we had to carry it in, like all of that was new to me. Just even like lifting the water up and, like filling it up with the hose and taking the time to do that when it was empty. And then the bathroom situation. So initially we had to drive about half a mile down the road to a public restroom. And so every morning I would wake up and, go to the bathroom right away. And so I'd go down the road and go to the bathroom. So all of that was like literally completely getting me entirely out of anything that I was familiar with. That was just every single part, the equipment that we were using for rafting, the equipment we were using for the lifestyle we were living, the terminology, and the people and the interests of the people that I was with. Absolutely every single thing was totally new to me. So I was pushing myself like completely beyond what was comfortable to me and what I had known for my entire life, especially through the years of chronic illness. So if you're wondering like, well, how did I go from brain retraining to whitewater rafting, because that's like a pretty extremely physical thing to be doing. Well, it was the end of my brain retraining experience. So the process of leading up to that is like a very long, lengthy story, but just in short, in the things that I did leading up to that was initially I was futurizing everything in my mind and planning like ahead. I made a vision board of all these outdoor things, not knowing what that was going to lead me to. Everything was like campfires and woods and everything like that. One of my best friends lived in Tahoe, and I had grown up going to Tahoe, living in the Bay Area, growing up in the San Francisco Bay Area. So that was like one of the places I had on my top list. I had a few different places, but I was looking for jobs in different places and seeing what I could do. So that's why I had a vision board with all this outdoor stuff on it, because I knew that I just wanted to be somewhere out in nature. I wanted to be connecting with nature. That was something that really, really led me to my healing, was just being outside and connecting, getting in the sun, getting my vitamin D, which is what I'm doing right now. It's been rainy and cold here, so today is just gorgeous. It's actually hot lying in the sun right now. And so taking that opportunity to soak that up. And so I would spend a lot of time out in nature, and it felt really amazing, just meditative. I would literally like sit there and just meditate, staring out at you know, what was around me, taking the time listening to my surroundings, really just immersing myself and calming my mind down. And that was huge, huge, huge for my healing. So I spent a lot of time focused on that. So when I made my vision board, I was like, well, I know how healing nature has been, and I really, really want to get out of everything that I've known here, everything in brain retraining that I'm reading and that I'm watching. I'm like, okay, it's all telling me you have to do something that you are unfamiliar with, something that you know, brings you out of your patterning. And so I kind of was like, okay, this is kind of my end goal. I am going to bring myself entirely out of this and go entirely somewhere new. So my vision board was all outdoor kayaking and hiking and backpacking and camping and all these things that I just had never really done before. So I was envisioning this every day, not knowing exactly where this would lead to. I had one experience that like was in my mind that I was using for this, which you can draw on those for yourself, is to find, you know, one experience which somewhat is anyway near what it is that you're calling into your life, and use that experience and use it over and over and over and over again. That's what I did. I had it on my wall. I would see it every single day, and I would use that experience to bring myself into my future, so I could kind of start to feel it and see it. And then when I started having improvements, I would use my training zone where I was at the moment with everything, and I would do little incremental versions of what it was that I was calling in, what it was that, you know, I was working on at the moment. So if it was multiple chemical sensitivity, then I was like imagining myself in a store with chemicals, and then moving, you know, into maybe being in the backyard and having somebody spray something in the backyard that I was sensitive to, and calming my nervous system down, telling me I'm safe, and, you know, working through it in those ways. Eventually, after using those incremental trainings and bringing myself into a totally different space, I also did breath work and cold therapy, which tremendously helped with this, and NAET treatments, which those like were huge were those three things in combination with the brain retraining. And then I started, the biggest thing that was like a key change in my life was that I started driving again. So I was having really bad tunnel vision and PTSD in the car, and so in my futurizations I was constantly seeing myself, first of all, riding as a passenger in the car and being okay with, you know, stopping and lights flashing and all that kind of stuff, because I was so incredibly sensitive to all that, and the sensory processing was so intense with everything. And then I got to a point where I was actually able to back the car out of the driveway one day. I was like, you know what, I'm just going to get in the car and I'm going to back it out of the driveway. And at that point I had really bad vertigo, and so I was like, okay, even just turning around and feeling the car backing up is like going to set off some vertigo kind of stuff. And I was like, no, I can do this. I'm going to stay strong. I'm going to tell my body I'm safe. And I was able to back myself out of the driveway and like went probably like 30 feet and pull it into the street. But that was huge. Like that was a big mountain that I was climbing just doing that one little thing. And then it was a few months later that somewhere down the line, I don't remember the exact timeline, I ended up getting in the car and deciding that I was going to drive down the roads. We went off to where there wasn't a lot of traffic, you know, kind of out in the middle of nowhere, and I just got used to feeling the steering wheel, feeling the car, getting used to being in that experience, and behind the driver, the wheel of the car again, and so that was so big. From there, I just kept practicing, and I was actually reading back at my journals where I was talking about this, and it was a pretty short time from that first time of driving until I was driving on a regular basis. Like I want to say it was somewhere like a month or two. Like it was, okay, I was trusting myself, like saying, okay, I know I've trained, I know I've gotten myself to a place, now I just gotta do it. So there's the action in, you know, your training zone and doing what it is, you know, that fits at the different times, but you get to a point where you have to push yourself beyond. You just have to do it, and regardless of how much you do that day or where you're at that day, it doesn't matter, as long as you just keep trying and just keep putting yourself in those situations. So eventually I was like, okay, I'm driving, I'm getting myself to the grocery store, I'm shopping for my own food, I'm bringing myself to any appointments I'm going to, and I'm just going on drives, just like practicing driving. And so after a few months of this, was like, well, I really want to up my game now and start bringing in some money. So I was fortunate to, my family had a family business, and so I was able to do some marketing for them and bring in a little bit of money that way. But now I was like, I really want to get out and do my own thing, and I really want to try some things. So I was like, what is something I can do? I don't feel like I could work on a schedule right now, that if somebody says you need to be here at the same time, I wasn't at a place where I felt like my body and my mind was strong enough to do that. So to be reliable at that point in time, and that's okay, because that's where I was in my training zone. So I ended up looking for gig jobs. I ended up seeing like, okay, what can I make my own schedule with? So I did some shipped shopping, and I did some walking people's dogs. And I even tried delivering pharmaceuticals to people for a while, which was kind of a funny thing for me to do, because I was really stepped away from the pharmaceutical companies, and was like, oh, this is kind of weird to be, you know, doing this, but it was something that was, I think I only did it for like 2 or 3 months. It just wasn't profitable enough. It wasn't as profitable as the other things I was doing. So, but it was practice, and it was allowing myself to try something new. This was so big, was just continuously trying different things. And if something wasn't right for me, that's okay. I would just move on to the next thing that was coming up. Also, as I was coming out of all of this, at some point I again, I'll have to look back at my journals and see like when this was, but at some point when I was still heavily brain retraining, and I think it was before I started driving, I challenged myself to do something that scared me every day. Now, legit, when I started this, walking to the mailbox was something that scared me. So the mailbox is down the street a little ways, so getting out of the house. But the thing that really scared me about it was actually running into a neighbor, and having to interact with somebody and not feeling good and not knowing like the questions that they're gonna ask, and you know, just not necessarily wanting to be in that. So that was like a big thing to overcome for me, and I had to tell myself, okay, you're strong, you can do this. If you run into somebody, you can say hi, and you can say I have to get going if they want to like stay and talk. You know, like practicing being human again, practicing just normal daily things. And so I just did that stuff over and over and over again, and the more that you do it, the more you become comfortable with it. The initial, like, you know, facing that lion initially is what is the scariest part of it. It's just telling yourself, I can do this. And when you face it and you do it, it's like, whoa, like I just did that wasn't, you know, that big of a deal. For most cases, you know, you're like, oh my gosh, I could do that, and I'm excited, or I could do it again, you know. And there's all different variations and versions of, you know, how that will play out for you. But every time that we challenge ourselves to do something, and we accomplish that challenge, no matter how small it is, seriously, it could be walking to the mailbox, it doesn't matter. You did it. That's the biggest thing. And so you build that dopamine, that, you know, rush up, you build your confidence in yourself. That's the biggest thing, I think, when we have, you know, severe chronic illnesses, that our confidence levels are really plummeted, and we don't trust ourselves, you know, we don't trust our bodies, and so our confidence is just down. So anything that we can do to boost our confidence up, and that's also like sitting up with straight posture and straightening the back of the neck. Now that was something I did as well, was to sit up straight. Especially my back was, and my ab muscles were so atrophied that I like couldn't sit up without the support of a chair or a wall, something to lean against, because my core was so weak. So just even in posturing, that builds your confidence, like building up your physical body in all the ways that you can, even if that's just practicing sitting initially, like that gets you somewhere. I'm now going to the gym every single day and working out for 45 minutes to an hour at, you know, high intensity workouts. You know, I became a whitewater raft guide. I was lifting huge rafts over my head, and, you know, in charge of a raft of people and their safety. So you can get from not being able to sit and hold your support of yourself up to carrying a 150-pound raft over your head. So after I did the gig work and I started doing that for a consistent while of some kind, I was like, okay, I am ready. So this is where I was like, okay, I've got the driving, I've got some work experience. I feel like I could now accountably show up for a job. And so I was like, I'm just going to do the most random, hardest thing I can find and become a whitewater raft guide. I was actually looking for any outdoor jobs. So I was looking at a couple different places. I decided Tahoe was the right place for me at the time. And I was like, okay, what are these jobs coming up? I called a couple different people and talked to them and asked them about all this stuff. One was like a tree adventure, you know, the zip lining and stuff like that. And I knew that in the winter, you know, skiing and snowboarding, that there were various different jobs around that I could do. So I called around to different places and was just looking online, and then I found the whitewater rafting, and I love water, and I'm always called to water. And so that was like, I talked to the person the day I found it and was like, yep, I'm in. I'll be there for guide school. So I had, I think, like 2 or 3 months to prepare for this. So again, I had no experience. I had been watching a lot of YouTube videos with outdoor adventures. This was something that helped me get through my really, really dark times where I was in bed, was actually watching people camping and being outside and doing all these fun adventure exploring things, using their bodies and seeing how strong they are. These were things like images that I constantly was filling my mind with. And and like putting those seeds into my mind and saying, oh, this is something that I want to do, and something that I can do. I can have this too. And another thing with that, you know, with the media part of this, was that I stopped watching things that didn't serve me. So if I didn't feel good, if I was scared and like watching a scary movie and it doesn't benefit me kind of way, you know, if I didn't feel good watching something, I stopped watching it. I just did. Music, all my music became like yoga music, kundalini music, frequency music, you know, love frequency, and, you know, just I started listening to Satsang and Trevor Hall and Revolution all the time, and Stick Figure, and all these artists that were singing lyrics about things that were positive and inspiring and motivating, and, you know, felt really good to hear. So that was big for me as well, was what I was filling my brain with. We're doing brain retraining, right? And we're spending, you know, up to an hour a day, you know, in our rounds of doing brain retraining. And then if we're listening to things that are the opposite, that aren't motivating, and that are bringing us down in some way, or watching things that are bringing fear into our lives, even just like, I don't watch TV. I don't watch movies other than the Barbie movie. I have no idea what's come out in the last few years. I don't know who actors are. It doesn't matter to me. I stopped filling my mind with other people's ideas of things that didn't benefit me. I do watch documentaries. And so that was huge, was, you know, what am I filling my time with? What am I filling my brain with? And a lot of it was YouTube at that time. That was like, YouTube was my friend, and YouTube was my, you know, my entertainment, and that was huge for me. So now I'm back at the Raft Guide story, where I was talking to the owner of the company, and he said, come to guide school. So I had been watching these, you know, videos on outdoor stuff, and had a little bit of an idea of like potentially gear that I would need or things like that, but I had been watching zero things about whitewater rafting or kayaking or anything like that. It was mostly camping. So I started watching whitewater rafting videos and gear and how to read water, and just hearing things, you know, getting used to what might be to come, you know, with the things that I would need to know. And so I ordered the things that they said I would need. I didn't have like basic camping stuff, so I went on Amazon, or we actually had a store in town that was sadly closing. That was an outdoor store, so they had a huge sale, and my mom had a gift card that she had won somewhere and never used because she didn't buy outdoor stuff. And so she's like, everything's like 80% off, and here's like a gift card. And so I went and I got, like, you know, the things that I thought I would need, and they definitely used them also. that was like awesome. That was the universe coming in and saying, here's some stuff you need. So I moved, and I got prepared. Well, I got prepared to move mentally. I got prepared for going off on my own, and you know, having a job and being responsible for you know, paying rent in the place that I was moving into initially, and all these things are really scary. And this is actually a hiccup I see with people a lot in working with people with coaching through brain retraining, is that when the responsibilities start to change, or even the prospect of responsibility starting to change, it can feel really scary, and it can feel like there's like a big setback. So we sometimes sabotage ourselves in these situations because there is a lot of fear and pressure, whether it's pressure from other people saying like, oh, you're doing better, well, now are you ready to work again? Or, you know, pressure on ourselves to step up our game, you know, and it's like, that's work at your own pace with all that. Stand in your ground at where you're at. You know, if somebody's been helping you through, whether it's the government, you know, or whether it's family or friends or a partner, a spouse, you know, talk to them, tell them, you know, like where you're at, and that you do see yourself like getting a job, and you know, you see this along your timeline and everything, but you're just not quite there yet. So these things can feel really, really scary, and they can actually set us back. And I notice that people will actually develop entirely new symptoms at this point, new its at this point, and kind of go inward again, because there is a lot of scariness about, well, first of all, like, a lot of the times it's also, well, what do I want to do? Like, how do I want to do things differently? Because I don't want to do it exactly the same way that I did it before, because then I ended up sick, you know, I ended up like in these chronic experiences. So there's a lot of questions and fears that come up when it comes to taking on new responsibilities and getting better, because you're not sure like how much better you actually are. And so being graceful with yourself, talking to family, you know, talking to friends, so that there's like an understanding, you know, of like where you're at, and that this is just going to take some time, and that you're really excited that you can go do fun stuff, and, you know, start to go do stuff again. Maybe take like a gig job or a little like under the table part-time job or something like that. All these things are, you know, like little steps into getting where you're going, and you can explain it in that way. That might be kind of helpful to do that. So I get to Tahoe, and there was so much anxiety, so much fear. I was actually not sleeping at this point. I was sleeping about 2 hours a night, because I was so excited, and I was also so nervous at the same time, and I had so many thoughts going through my head. I hadn't even really socialized with many people in years, you know, and here I am going to be like showing up to an entirely new group of people, like not knowing anybody. So there was a lot of anxiety, and I was literally sleeping like 2, maybe 3 hours a night. And I was actually sleeping on the floor at this time. I spent over 2 years sleeping on the floor to help with my back support, and grounding down during sleep. I have an old video on that, actually. Yeah, then I ended up, after a couple months, ended up moving into a school bus with my boyfriend at the time, and that was just such a different experience. It was like basically camping every day, you know, and I was around the other raft guides that lived on the property there, and it was just super fun. And, you know, everybody's like, we're going down to the river, and, you know, just like grab your stuff real quick and just go hop on the river, and, you know, go take a run or whatever it was that we were doing. You know, it was so much fun, and it was just so different. And, you know, everything around me was different. I'd never lived in the forest before. I had never lived like in a silo camping before. I'd never hauled water before. I'd never had to drive to go to the bathroom, or then we got a porta potty on the property there, and so we were using the porta potty, you know, peeing in the woods. And the eating thing was so interesting. So when I actually showed up to guide school, we did the daytime, you know, whole day of rafting and, you know, learning all the ropes and everything, and then we'd go home and sleep. But then at the end of the 2 weeks of training, we had 3 days of camping. So during that time, they kind of had a collective barbecue where everybody was like kind of cooking and eating the same things. People were cooking and everybody was eating the same meal kind of thing. But at this point, I had just been coming out of eating no meat for I think it was like a year, maybe a year and a half or so. It was a while that I didn't eat any meat. And it wasn't because I was vegan, it was just because my body hadn't been tolerating meat, and didn't want meat at all. So I just had stopped eating it. I did do a chicken and egg vial right before this, and that helped me to absorb protein better. So I did start to crave meat, and I was eating it more often. But at this point, I was still I added tremendous amounts of things back into my diet, and was eating like, I was at the worst point down to 10 different foods. And at this point, when I was in Tahoe at my guide school camping, I was eating way, way, way more things, like almost like, I think, lowering gluten. I had not added dairy back in. I wasn't eating processed foods and sugar, you know, or anything like that. I was still very, very cautious of my food and very like skeptical. But this is where I started letting go of reading ingredients. So I'd gotten to a point where I was like, okay, I trust my body. I trust myself. I know I've done the work. I'm going to let this go. So over the next year and a half, I just exhaled and I was like, I'm not gonna be bound to this anymore. This isn't gonna be my ball and chain. I'm not gonna read ingredients for the rest of my life. I can if I want to, but I'm not gonna make it that I'm gonna die or have a severe reaction, you know, if I eat the wrong thing. I'm like, I'm not gonna live like this anymore. So this was the continuing of my training zone, the continuing of my brain retraining, putting it into action. And I ended up that next winter, or that winter that I was there, I added, the first winter I was there, I added dairy back into my diet. That was the last thing. So I was like eating Skittles, which is something that like, actually they tasted like kind of like plastic. I didn't eat them for very long, but it was more like a training thing of like, I can eat this and I'm not going to die. I can eat this and I'm still safe. I'm not going to choose to eat this forever, but I'm safe if I eat this. So I was eating Skittles, I was eating like bags of chips, and I was eating, you know, 7-Eleven food. We lived near like a 7-Eleven and there was really nothing where we lived. So just to go quick grab something, it was mostly sandwiches, or they had fruit there or something like that. I still ate very, very clean for the most part and healthy, but it was eating these things when it came up, or, you know, it was just something quick to grab or something like that. And this was at the time my training zone. This was me saying, no, I'm safe. I can eat this. It's okay. So I totally lost my fear of food. Don't even think about any of that anymore. I eat whatever I want. I eat extremely clean and healthy because that's what my body craves. That's what I want. That's what I feel good with. And so I eat a lot of fruits and vegetables, eat a lot of eggs. I'll eat meat, you know, probably at least once a week. And I try to get the good quality of everything. So I love naan bread. I eat a lot of naan bread with, it's basically my avocado toast on naan. Yeah, so that was kind of my story of going from being bedridden to a whitewater raft guy. So yeah, if you like this story and what I've been sharing today, please give it a thumbs up and please comment down below. That really helps get this video out to other people, so that anybody who, if you've benefited from this and you think other people can benefit from this, please like do that for us, you know, in the community here, so that this story can be shared, and I can get the story out to people who are looking for hope and some kind of guidance in some way. I do one-on-one coaching. I will link all the info down below. I specialize in brain retraining, but I also work with general wellness coaching, or just if you want to throw some things out to me and you're like, I don't know what to do, I don't know where to go. I'm not here to fix you, but I am here to be a sounding board and to bounce some ideas off of, and to just have somebody to talk to who's been through it and come out the other side. So yeah. Reach out to me on Instagram if you're interested in coaching. Follow me over there at kimbers.new.frequency, and I will see you in the next video. Remember that you are super powerful, that your body is super strong, and that you can listen to your intuition. You're very intelligent, and your cells know how to heal. All right, I'll see you in the next video. Bye.